Listen for a moment to the quiet question under your breathing. If God owns everything, why does your life, your careful work, your long nights, your tired hope still feel like a cup that never fills? You've tried to be responsible, you've pushed, you've saved, you've waited, and yet the numbers blur at the end of the month. The weight in your chest returns, and the future, that bright word you used to carry, keeps slipping through your fingers. I'm not here to accuse you. I'm here to sit with you, to turn on a gentle light, and to help you see what the strain has hidden from your eyes. No shame, no panic, no rush. Only clarity, only mercy, only truth that heals. Maybe this sounds familiar. You wake with a plan, but by night the plan has dissolved into unexpected purchases, a small lie you told yourself to feel better, a promise you pushed to tomorrow because today was heavy. You tell yourself it's just a season, just bad timing, just the economy. Still, something inside whispers that it's deeper than spreadsheets and paychecks. Your body knows it before your mind admits it. Your heartbeat quickens at bills. Your jaw tightens at other people's success. Your eyes scan for the next small relief. Your nervous system has been trained by years of scarcity alarms, fight, flight, fix it fast, and the brain, trying to protect you, chooses short relief over long peace. That's not moral failure, that's wiring under pressure. But grace invites us to rewire. Grace invites us to grow stronger circuits of wisdom, steadiness, and trust. The wisdom of Solomon speaks to this secret place where soul and habit meet. He doesn't talk about wealth as a trophy for the lucky. He talks about capacity, about becoming a person God can entrust. Entrustment is different from entitlement. Entitlement grabs, entrustment receives, entitlement clutches, entrustment channels. Think of a river that doesn't hoard water but carries it faithfully to fields. When God finds a river he can trust, he doesn't worry about the size of the floodgate. He increases the flow. The question beneath all questions becomes simple and searching. Not, how do I get more? But what kind of vessel am I becoming? If you listen closely, you can almost hear the ancient cadence. Wisdom builds, folly leaks. Wisdom gathers, folly scatters. Wisdom waits, folly rushes. And when Solomon looks at life, he names the patterns that quietly ruin capacity, patterns that look small on the surface, but hollow us out from within. You may have felt them already, in the way your attention frays, in the way your promises wobble, in the way urgency shouts louder than truth. This is not about punishment, it's about patterns. Patterns either widen your inner container or crack it until increase slips away. God, who is generous, watches the container. He loves you too much to pour oil into a vessel that will spill and shame you. He wants to entrust, not embarrass. I want you to notice your breath right now. Place both feet on the ground. Let your shoulders drop by a single inch. Inhale slowly through your nose to a count of 4. Exhale even slower to a count of 6. Feel what happens when your body stops bracing. When your body is less afraid, your mind can finally tell the truth. With fear down and attention up, you can hear the gentle, stubborn reality that has been following you. Certain traps have been shaping your days. They are older than your job title and louder than your budget app. They live where belief shapes behavior, where a story you didn't mean to believe started steering the small choices that steer everything else. There is a kindness in naming these traps. Naming disarms confusion. Naming gives you handles. And the moment something has a handle, you can move it. That is what tonight is for, to put handles on what felt like a fog, not to bruise your heart, but to steady your hands, not to replay your failures, but to reveal the simple, sturdy practices that heal capacity. This is practical spirituality, truth that lands in your calendar, wisdom that touches your receipts, courage that rewrites your autopilot. It is also emotional neuroscience in daily clothes, the training of attention and impulse, the quiet strengthening of prefrontal choices over reflexive urges, the building of habits that make peace feel normal. I will speak to you the way I would speak to a friend at a kitchen table late at night, after the house has gone quiet and the sink still carries the day's dishes. is, we will respect your story. We will honor your effort. We will stop pretending that more force will fix what only wisdom can heal. There is a way to become entrustable again, to move from grasping at outcomes to shaping your inner life until increase is safe in your hands. You won't have to strain for it. You will have to grow for it. There is a difference. Strain tightens, growth opens. Strain proves, growth receives. Strain says, I must. Growth says, by grace, I can. As you listen, picture your life as a house with several rooms. In some, the lights are already on. In others, the switch is hidden behind a piece of furniture you dragged there years ago to cover a stain. Tonight, we move the furniture. We find the switch. We let light do what light always does. Show what is, warm what is cold, reveal the simple human choices that invite God to trust you with more. Not because you chased wealth, but because you became someone who could carry it without breaking. Not because you outran fear, but because you retrained your soul to walk in rhythm with truth. Hold this sentence near your heart as we begin. God doesn't entrust wealth to those trapped in 6 sins. Read it again, quietly, almost like a prayer. Let it settle, not as accusation, but as invitation. An invitation to see, an invitation to release what has been holding you back, an invitation to build the inner life that can carry the outer blessing. If a river can be cleared, it will flow. If a vessel can be mended, it will hold. If a heart can be taught, it will be trusted. And you, right now, are already closer to that trust than you feel. This message is for the person who moves through life with a steady face and a private ache. For the one who meets deadlines, signs forms, and keeps the lights on, yet lies awake, counting not only dollars, but disappointments. It is for the faithful worker who wonders why increase seems to slip through careful fingers. For the parent who wants to bless a child without passing along the old anxiety. For the leader who bears the weight of others and quietly wonders who is holding them. If that recognition lands somewhere in the chest, that is the sign you're in the right room. It is for those who have tried the louder strategies and grown tired of the noise. The hustle, the hot takes, the 5-step promises that work until they don't. The heart knows when the noise isn't helping. The body knows too. Shoulders pull tight, sleep grows thin. The mind starts bargaining. Tomorrow will be different, next month will be easier, and the nervous system keeps rehearsing the same alarm. This is not weakness, it is wiring under strain, and yet wiring can be retrained. Hearts can be steadied. Patterns can be rewritten, not by shame, but by wisdom that sinks into ordinary hours. It is for anyone who senses that the question behind money is actually a question about capacity. Not only how much can I earn, but how much peace can I hold while I earn. Not only what is my plan, but what is my pattern. The language here will honor both soul and science. The soul that longs for meaning, and the science that explains why the amygdala shouts when bills arrive, why the prefrontal places that handle judgment and timing go dim under pressure, why quick comfort masquerades as safety. When clarity enters, the alarms ease. When hope is grounded, the body cooperates. When the inner container grows, the outer provision stops leaking. It is for those who want a faith that touches Tuesday afternoon and not just Sunday morning. A spirituality that sits at the kitchen table with receipts and calendars and still speaks gently. Some arrive with old guilt, others arrive with quiet pride and a stuck feeling they cannot name. All are welcome. No labels, no theatrics, only the careful work of seeing what is true. The patient work of becoming entrustable, the kind work of mending what can hold more. Finally, it is for anyone who has felt unseen by God in the area of finances and needs to hear this said without drama. You are not unloved. You are being invited. Invited to light that reveals, not light that shames. Invited to wisdom that calms the body and clarifies the path. Invited to capacity, slow, durable, interior capacity that becomes safe in God's hands and strong in your own. If the longing to be trusted has been living under your ribs, this is for you. Before the numbers and the plans, There is a vision of reality that steadies the heart. Wisdom is not a trophy for the clever. It is a way of being that God delights to trust. Solomon does not split life into sacred and secular shelves. He speaks as if the ledger and the prayer, the handshake and the hidden motive, the harvest and the habit all live under one sky. Wealth, in his frame, is not merely possession, it is responsibility, not merely accumulation, alignment, not merely having, handling. This is why increase follows character like a river follows gravity, because capacity attracts entrustment. The Solomonic lens is clear and kind. The interior life governs the exterior flow. Diligence widens the channel, deceit thins it. Humility strengthens the walls, pride cracks them. Self-control paces the stream, impulse floods, and then leaves silt. Generosity keeps the water sweet, envy turns it brackish. These are not punishments dropped from above, they are consequences that grow from within. When the inner architecture is sound, opportunity does not overwhelm. It organizes itself around a steady soul. When the inner architecture is fractured, even blessings feel heavy, and gains seep away through hairline faults no spreadsheet can fully explain. Practical spirituality and emotional neuroscience meet here without conflict. Solomon names patterns of the heart. The brain shows how those patterns become pathways. Honest weights calm the body because congruence reduces cognitive strain. Counsel increases accuracy because many perspectives reduce blind spots the mind cannot see on its own. Patience restores executive function, giving timing and judgment room to breathe. Generosity deactivates threat circuits by proving again and again that there is enough to share. What ancient wisdom calls prudence, the lab would call regulation. What the sages call integrity, the lab would call coherence. Different words for the same healing. In this foundation, trust becomes the central theme. God entrusts to what will carry, not to what will crack. He does not withhold to mock. He waits to protect. He is not measuring worthiness with a cold ruler. He is cultivating capacity with a warm hand. The goal is not to perform for favor, but to grow into form, into the shape that can hold more without losing itself. When life adopts this frame, the question shifts from chasing outcomes to cultivating the inner conditions that make outcomes safe. And under that shift, hope stops straining and starts standing quietly, like a well-built house that can welcome weather without fear. Before we step into the rooms of this house, one by one, it helps to see the hallway that connects them. Clarity softens anxiety. Names dissolve confusion. When the patterns are named, the mind stops chasing shadows, and the heart stops blaming itself for what is simply misaligned practice. This is where ancient wisdom offers a steady mirror, not to accuse, but to reveal the small hinges that move the heavy doors of our days. In that mirror, 6 specific traps come into focus: quiet, familiar, deceptively reasonable. And they explain why capacity leaks even when intention is honest and effort is sincere. Let these names sit with the weight they deserve and the gentleness they require. Each one is more than a word. It is a rhythm in the nervous system, a reflex in the moment between desire and decision, a story about safety and control. Each one has a cost you can feel in your body and see in your calendar, yet each one, once brought into light, can be unlearned, replaced by practices that enlarge the container, steady the flow, and make increase safe. With the framework clear, the path ahead is simple in the best sense of the word. One room at a time, one pattern at a time, one honest turn toward entrustment. There is a kind of tiredness that does not look like laziness from the outside. It looks like a full calendar and an empty harvest, like motion without momentum, like a heart that wants to build but drifts in circles. It is not a moral scandal. It is a slow leak. It shows up as delay that feels harmless, as decisions postponed until decisions are made for you, as days that blur into each other while the barn stays quiet. In the language of ancient wisdom, this is sloth, not the cartoon of someone sleeping on the job, but the quiet neglect of the rhythms that make increase possible. It is the erosion of diligence, the forgetting of small faithfulness, the surrender of structure to the smooth voice of later, hidden pain. I work hard, yet nothing compounds. The body knows that pain. It is a heaviness in the chest at the end of the week, the sense that effort keeps evaporating before it becomes fruit. Neuroscience would describe the mind's economy here. Without structures that reduce decision fatigue, the brain reaches for comfort loops that feel like relief but cannot create return. The result is energy spent without compounding, motion without direction, a life that feels busy and somehow barren. Distorted belief. Wealth is mainly luck or connections. This belief settles like dust over ambition and turns it gray. It teaches the nervous system to wait for external rescue instead of building internal rhythm. And yet every field that ever yielded did so because someone met the same ground day after day, seed after seed, with patient attention. When the belief shifts from luck to stewardship, the mind stops bargaining with fate and starts partnering with time. Expectation breaker. God entrusts more to those who prove reliability in small, repetitive tasks. Planning, saving, tracking. This is where spiritual trust and neural training meet. Repetition strengthens pathways. Small, steady actions lower anxiety because the brain learns the pattern and stops bracing. Planning marks out the furrows. Saving plants the seeds. Tracking watches the weather. The holiness here is quiet, dependable, unflashy, and deeply human. Practical consequences to show. Budget drift. Missed opportunities, constant urgencies. The leaks are visible once named. Budget drift is the soft slide of dollars without assignment. Missed opportunities are the doors that were open while attention was elsewhere. Constant urgencies are the alarms that crowd out strategy. None of this requires shame to change. It requires rhythm that calms the alarms and turns urgency into order. Perception shift. Wealth as stewardship rhythm. Steady labor plus foresight. Rhythm is how the soul keeps time with reality. Steady labor gives today its dignity. Foresight gives tomorrow its welcome. Together, they create the conditions where provision can arrive and remain. In the nervous system, rhythm reduces cortisol spikes. In the spirit, rhythm restores a sense of partnership with God's timing. The barn begins to fill because the hands kept faith with the day. Symbol parable. The ant versus the folded hands, harvest prepped before the season. This picture is not a scold, it is a kindness. The ant is small and unstoppable because it trusts the cadence of its work. The folded hands are not evil, they are simply absent, and absence has consequences. Preparation is not glamorous, but it is prophetic. It treats the future as real enough to serve in advance. When a heart chooses the ant's path, the future stops feeling like a threat and begins to feel like an ally. Solomonic tie-in. Diligence leads to plenty, haste and laziness to want. The line is plain because the pattern is plain. Diligence is not frenzy, it is faithfulness. Haste is not speed, it is panic wearing the mask of productivity. Laziness is not rest. It is avoidance that empties tomorrow to comfort today. When these distinctions become clear, the soul stops confusing exhaustion with diligence and begins to value the quiet power of kept routines. Reflective question: where does your effort lack structure? Plan, schedule, review. Let the question linger without hurry. The mind will want to sprint to solutions. The heart will benefit from seeing the landscape first. Structure is not punishment. It is permission for peace. A plan tells your attention where to gather. A schedule tells your time where to belong. A review tells your growth where to continue. In the brain, this is executive function waking up. In the spirit, this is wisdom putting down roots. Notice how this chapter does not ask you to hustle. It invites you to hear the difference between drift and diligence. Drift is soft. It feels like later. It steals quietly. Diligence is gentle. It feels like returning. It gives quietly. Drift keeps the barn empty even while the days are full. Diligence builds without drama until the season changes and there is something to show. If the ant could speak, It would say that small faithfulness is never small to the God who entrusts, that preparation is not wasted time, but planted time, and that a life aligned with wise rhythm becomes a vessel that can carry more without cracking. There is a particular tension that settles in the body when truth bends, a subtle tightening behind the eyes, a shallow breath that never quite lands. The mind calls it strategy, the calendar calls it efficiency, but the soul knows the difference between clean gain and quick gain. Somewhere beneath the rationalization lives a quieter arithmetic. When trust leaks, capacity shrinks. Not only others' trust, but self-trust, the inner confidence that lets action be steady and sleep be deep. The old wisdom doesn't stand over us with a finger pointed. It simply holds up a mirror and lets us feel what we already know. A small compromise costs more than its moment. Money often moves along the hidden rails of reputation, and reputation moves along the hidden rails of integrity. Where words and weights match, people relax around you. Where they do not, the world grows skittish, and the doors that should swing open stay half-closed. Emotional neuroscience names the feeling. Incongruence spikes stress, stress narrows focus, narrowed focus grabs short wins and misses long compounding. The spiritual and the neural agree here. A split life is exhausting. A congruent life is efficient. In a congruent life, attention is not divided between what happened and what must be covered. The mind is free to build rather than manage a maze. In that light, what looks like a harmless shortcut reveals its deeper cost. Attacks on relational capital, a haze over judgment, a nervous system that can't downshift because it is busy keeping stories straight. The ancient image of weights and scales is profoundly modern. Honest scales mean your story does not wobble when tested. Honest scales mean your nervous system can stand still. And when the body is no longer braced for exposure, creativity returns, counsel is heard, and opportunities trust you back. This is not moral theater. It is simple cause and effect. Congruence compounds. The heart often flinches at the word dishonesty because it imagines a headline, but most erosion arrives in whispers. A rounded number here, a promise postponed without acknowledgement there, a talent borrowed without credit. None of it feels catastrophic, and yet the nervous system logs every wobble, and the people around you feel it, even when no one speaks. The cost is cumulative. Energy spent on managing impressions, creativity dulled by low-grade fear, relationships that never quite deepen because something in the air remains unclean. Honest scales are not ascetic. They are generous to your future self. They return energy to building instead of covering, to crafting instead of compensating. When the inner and outer weights match, a surprising quiet enters the room. Calls are returned. Referrals emerge. The body loosens because it no longer rehearses outcomes where exposure ruins everything. That quiet is not luck. It is the dividend of alignment. The mind stops chasing short relief because it remembers what long peace feels like. And in that peace, God entrusts more, not as a prize for perfection, but as a natural response to a vessel that carries what it is given without leak or stain. In a world hungry for speed, congruence seems slow until you notice how fast trust compounds around it. There is a quiet stiffness that enters the room when pride takes the chair, a subtle lift in the chin, a narrowing of the eyes, a shield that appears before a question even lands. Outwardly, it looks like confidence. Inwardly, it feels like bracing. The body senses threat where there is only feedback, and the nervous system misreads correction as danger to identity. Emotional neuroscience names this moment. Status threat triggers the alarm circuits, and the brain protects the self by rejecting the signal that could have saved the day. The cost is invisible at first. A missed insight, a delayed pivot, a conversation that never reaches honesty. But over time, the cost compounds into ceilings you cannot see and stagnation you cannot outrun. Expertise is a gift. Isolation is not. Competence wins trust. Defensiveness dissolves it. Pride teaches the mind to rehearse answers instead of receive them, to guard the castle instead of expand the map. Counsel becomes noise. Questions feel like attacks. The inner monologue shifts from, "What might I be missing?" to, How do I prove I'm right? And the prefrontal places that handle judgment and timing get crowded by the need to be unassailable. Ancient wisdom warned us with simple clarity: correction multiplies, refusal shrinks. In spiritual terms, pride closes the gate where provision would have walked in. In neural terms, pride keeps the brain on a tight loop and starves it of the error signals it needs to learn. Humility is not theatrics, it is intelligent self-protection. It lowers the guard without lowering the standard. It treats feedback as a mirror, not a verdict. It opens a city's gates to skilled friends when danger approaches and wisdom is outside the walls. In a humble life, counsel is leverage. Every conversation increases accuracy, and every perspective widens the field. The measurable effects are striking: fewer blind spots, stronger timing, less reactivity, more pivots at the right moment. In the body, humility feels like a deeper breath and a slower pulse. In the spirit, humility feels like ground beneath your feet, where panic used to live. Notice how the hidden pain sneaks in, the sense of a plateau you cannot name, the sight of younger or humbler voices moving ahead while your progress feels heavy. It is not a failure of talent, it is the physics of closed gates. When information cannot enter, growth cannot scale. The fragile ego shows up as argument where curiosity would have served better, as a tight smile that says yes while the heart stays no, as a schedule full of meetings that never quite reach candor. The missed pivot is not a mystery, it is a late truth arriving at a locked door. Counsel received with an open chest and a steady breath becomes a kind of insurance against our own limits. It is risk management in the most human sense, reducing the probability and impact of avoidable mistakes by letting trusted eyes search the horizon with us. The spiritual and the scientific shake hands here. Many advisors reduce blind spots. Distributed cognition increases accuracy. The result is not passivity, it is precision. Decisions grow cleaner, timing grows kinder. Opportunity recognizes a leader who can be corrected without collapsing, and trust begins to accumulate around that steadiness. Hold the image of the city with gates. Gates are not weakness, they are wisdom. They open to what builds and close to what devours. Pride welds the hinges, humility keeps them in good repair. When the hinges move, knowledge travels. When knowledge travels, the city thrives. In a life like that, God's entrustment feels natural, not dramatic. The vessel can carry more because it no longer leaks through the cracks of self-protection. The mind can learn faster because it is no longer spending energy on appearing invulnerable. And the soul, relieved of the need to be the smartest person in the room, regains the joy of being the most teachable, a joy that, in the long arc, grows larger than any short victory pride could ever deliver. There is a velocity that feels like progress, and yet quietly empties the field. It begins in the body as a flutter, an urge to click now, sign now, say yes now, because the present moment feels bigger than tomorrow. The pulse jumps, the breath shortens, the eyes narrow, and the mind, built to keep you safe, tries to trade discomfort for quick comfort. Emotional neuroscience names the pattern. Threat and reward circuits tug at the wheel, and the systems that handle judgment and timing dim under pressure. What looks like momentum can be a sprint away from peace. What feels like energy can be anxiety with good marketing. The result is a string of choices that sparkle in the moment and weigh heavy in the morning, a life full of starts and thin on harvest. Speed is not the enemy, panic disguised as speed is. There is a cadence that respects timing, a tempo that lets due diligence breathe, a pace that trusts good work to ripen. When that cadence holds, money behaves differently. Opportunities line up instead of collide. Purchases serve a plan instead of soothing a feeling. Projects finish because attention was given to fewer, better, slower steps. Ancient wisdom has said this for ages in plain words. The plans of the diligent lead to abundance, but quick gain thins out. The soul recognizes the truth not because it is harsh, but because it is relieving. It explains why effort can be real, and yet results feel like sand. The hidden pain is a paradox that stings. Income rises, and yet the account never rests. The nervous system, trained by scarcity alarms, keeps spiking toward quick relief, and quick relief keeps sending invoices labeled interest, fees, and regret. The clutter around the house tells a quiet story of moments that promised comfort and did not keep their word. The calendar tells another story. Too many starts, too few completions, because attention was asked to do the work that structure should have done. None of this requires scolding to change. It requires a gentler pace that restores the part of you that can hold long horizons without grabbing short sugar. The vineyard image is tender and honest. A vineyard cannot be rushed without being ruined. Vines need spacing, pruning, trellising, sun and shade in their time. The field overgrown is not a monument to laziness. It is a record of neglect produced by hurry. Good intentions without intervals, effort without intervals, prayers without intervals. When life becomes a vineyard rather than a racetrack, patience stops sounding like delay and starts sounding like design. The body feels it as steadier breathing, as choices that land without a jolt, as evenings where the mind is not buzzing with unfinished impulses. There is also a quiet dignity in waiting for clarity. Waiting is not idling. It is listening to signals that emerge only when the noise drops, listening to counsel that only makes sense when defensiveness steps aside, listening to the pattern of provision that often arrives on time, not on demand. In that atmosphere, staged commitments become a kindness to yourself. They let the truth of a choice show itself in phases. They protect energy, protect attention, protect trust. And slowly, what used to be a reflex becomes a rhythm. What used to be an urge becomes a considered yes. Haste promises a life without friction and gives a life without margins. Wisdom promises a life with rhythm and gives a life with room. Room to think, room to turn, room to carry what arrives. When those rooms open up inside you, provision stops slipping through rushed hands, and God's entrustment begins to feel less like a test and more like a natural fit, because the pace is safe, the vessel is steady, and the harvest has time to ripen. There is a particular tightness that visits the chest when someone else's good news arrives. It is small, almost polite, yet it leaves the room colder. The face smiles, the jaw holds, the eyes calculate. The body keeps score because the heart feels behind, and what could have been inspiration becomes irritation dressed as analysis. This is not a scandal of character. It is the ache of a nervous system trained by scarcity. It believes, often without words, that there is not enough space for both their gain and your peace. The hand closes because closing feels safe. The river narrows because narrowing feels smart. And in that narrowing, flow diminishes. Generosity and envy live in the same neighborhood of the soul, and the brain reads them like weather. When the hand opens, the body experiences sufficiency. Safety cues rise, attention widens. When the eye sours, threat cues rise, attention narrows. Short-term protection overrides long-term flourishing. Ancient wisdom said this in images long before the lab had language for it. An open hand stays fresh like a river in motion. An evil eye turns water brackish. The spiritual principle and the neural pattern align. Giving is not theatrics, it is training. It trains the heart to trust that there is a source beyond the math. It trains the body to stand down from alarms that keep life small. There is a difference between being a reservoir and being a channel. A reservoir without outflow grows stagnant. A channel receives precisely because it releases. In real days, this looks like money treated as seed and signal. Seed, because it is planted with intention toward fruit beyond the moment. Signal, because it communicates reliability to heaven and to people. Increase is safe with me. Goodness will not stop with me. Partnerships recognize that signal. Opportunities do too. The room warms, the air clears. Trust has a sound, and open hands make it. The hidden pain has a texture. Feeling invisible while others are celebrated. Feeling penalized by heaven while others are promoted. It is a lonely feeling, and loneliness hardens into tightness when unspoken. Envy does not begin as malice. It often begins as grief. Grief that your time has not yet come. Grief that your labor has not yet been seen. When grief is named, it softens. When it softens, the hand begins to open, not to perform, but to breathe. And the moment the hand opens, the story changes. The heart participates in goodness instead of merely observing it. Partnerships grow in the climate of open hands. In that climate, people stop bracing around you. They stop wondering if you will compete when they succeed or withdraw when they shine. Scarcity teaches relationships to keep a safe distance. Generosity teaches them to draw near. Relational coolness thaws in rooms where wins are celebrated without calculation, where resources move towards shared goals, where credit is given with ease. A life like this becomes a trustworthy junction. Gifts come in, gifts go out, and the stream stays clear. The old saying lands with renewed depth: the generous prosper, the one who refreshes is refreshed. This is not superstition, it is alignment. Refreshing others physiologically refreshes the giver, loosening stress, increasing a sense of meaning, strengthening bonds that form the quiet infrastructure of opportunity. And in the unseen, God entrusts what will not stagnate. The flow widens not because you grasped harder, but because you became a place where good can safely pass through. In that widening, the evil eye loses its power, the open hand becomes natural, and prosperity stops being a chase and becomes a current you can carry without breaking. There is a mercy in rhythm that will not be found in willpower. Rhythm does not demand heroics. It teaches the body to trust the day. When your nervous system recognizes the pattern, it stops bracing, and when it stops bracing, clarity returns. This is how wisdom becomes felt, not only believed, through small, repeatable touch points that let the mind breathe and the heart steady. Think of it as a gentle metronome for stewardship, a cadence that keeps attention aligned with purpose, so increase can arrive without being lost in noise. In this climate, spirituality becomes practical and neuroscience becomes pastoral. The soul learns that safety can be created on purpose. The body learns that peace can be practiced until it feels normal. The way this rhythm settles into ordinary hours is simple on the surface and deep in its effect. Repetition strengthens pathways in the brain. Congruence quiets alarm. Attentional cues placed at predictable times lower decision fatigue. Spiritual language would call this faithfulness. Clinical language would call it regulation. Both point to the same healing, a steady human structure that turns good intentions into lived capacity. Over time, the interior container changes shape. Anxiety loosens its grip. Focus returns. Choices begin to agree with values without a daily argument. What once felt like a moral struggle begins to feel like muscle memory, and that is a kind of freedom. Notice how each touch point speaks to a different leak. Morning lifts attention from drift to design, telling the day where to go so it does not go missing. Midday interrupts impulse with a small breath and a kind question, giving timing a chance to do its quiet work. Evening restores coherence. Gratitude softens the threat reflex, and integrity clears the static that would otherwise steal rest. Weekly counsel turns pride into precision, and generosity keeps the stream moving so it does not grow stale. Tracking, held lightly, becomes a mirror that reflects growth without scolding and directs effort without noise. This is not austerity. It is oxygen. It returns energy to building rather than bracing. As this rhythm takes root, the interior world begins to match the exterior hope. The prefrontal places that carry judgment and timing regain strength. The amygdala, no longer overworked, stops narrating every choice as danger. The spirit senses alignment, and the body confirms it with deeper breaths and steadier evenings. And somewhere in that steadiness, entrustment feels less like a prize to be chased and more like a natural response to a vessel that can carry what it is given. The barn may still be quiet for a season, But the ground is ready, the channels are clear, and the future no longer feels like a storm. It feels like weather a well-built house can welcome. Imagine a land of wide fields waiting for rain. In the center stands a reservoir, grand, walled, still. Not far away runs a simple channel, quiet, narrow, moving. The reservoir boasts of fullness, yet grows stale without an outlet. The channel never looks impressive, yet the orchards along its path are green. When the sky opens, both receive. Only one gives, only one stays fresh, only one becomes the trusted route for future rain. In the language of the soul, the 6 traps are not storms sent to punish. They are blockages inside the vessel. Sloth silts the bottom. Dishonesty muddies the water, pride raises the walls higher, impulsiveness cracks the sides with sudden surges, stinginess closes the gate, envy clouds the surface until sunlight cannot do its work. The result is the same: less flow, less life, a quiet sense of heaviness where there should be movement. The channel tells another story. Its strength is not in storage, but in structure. Its edges are kept. Its path is clear, its flow is dependable. Diligence lays the banks morning by morning. Integrity keeps the water clean, so trust can drink without suspicion. Humility lowers the walls enough to welcome tributaries, new counsel, new skill, new timing. Patience paces the current, so the soil can absorb rather than erode. Generosity opens small gates along the way, nourishing what is near without fear of what is next. Celebration clears the eye, so sunlight reaches the bottom and life multiplies. This is spirituality with skin on it, and it is neuroscience at rest. Fewer alarms, steadier breath, longer horizons, held without strain. In that parable, the pivot appears. Wealth, in Solomon's vision, is not a prize handed to the loudest cup. It is a trust extended to the clearest channel. God is not withholding to starve, he is waiting to protect. Increase poured into a blocked reservoir shames the recipient and spoils the water. Increase released into a tended channel becomes provision for many and joy for the one who carries it. The transformation is not from poverty to riches. It is from grasping to entrustment, from anxiety to rhythm, from fragile walls to flexible flow. The person who once chased supply becomes the person through whom supply moves. There is a physics to this that the body understands. When the inner life is fractured, the nervous system stays on alert, and alertness turns even blessings into threats. When the inner life is aligned, the alarms go quiet enough for wisdom to surface, and wisdom organizes opportunity into order. The same amount of water behaves differently in a reservoir and a channel. So does the same salary, the same talent, the same open door. Structure changes the story. Character changes the carrying capacity. Trust changes the terrain. Let the parable work on you the way a slow river works on a stone, patiently, persistently, kindly. The old patterns lose their power not by force, but by a better rhythm taking their place. The channel is not spectacular. It is faithful, not dramatic. Dependable, and that dependability draws favor the way gravity draws water. When the sky opens again, as it will, the route it chooses has already been decided by the shape of the ground. In the quiet work of clearing blockages and shaping banks, you become that route. A path where goodness can move without getting stuck, a life God can trust without hesitation. Stay here for a breath and let the room grow quiet inside your chest. You have walked through the house with the lights on, seen where effort leaked and where rhythm returns it, felt how character carries provision, watched the difference between a reservoir that hoards and a channel that flows. None of this arrived to accuse you. It arrived to tell you that trust is possible, that capacity can be healed, that increase can become safe in your hands. What felt like a verdict has become a vocabulary. What felt like fog has become a map. There is a simple dignity in what is changing. The inner life that once rushed is learning cadence. The voice that once defended is learning to listen. The grip that once closed is learning to open. The self you bring to tomorrow is already different from from the self that pressed play tonight. Not because you proved something, but because you saw something. Seeing is the first mercy. Seeing is how the soul stops stumbling in a room it can now arrange. Carry one question with you like a smooth stone in the pocket. Which single trap is costing you most, and what is your first 24-hour correction? Not a dramatic overhaul, not a vow made under adrenaline, only an honest turn that your body can recognize and your calendar can hold. If the answer is small, that is wisdom. Small is how the nervous system learns safety. Small is how channels are kept clear. Let this closing rest over you like evening light. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are becoming entrustable, and entrustment has a sound. Quieter than panic, steadier than willpower, kinder than fear. As the days take on their new rhythm, the barn will speak in its time, the field will answer, and the stream will remember its way. Where flow returns, so does trust. Where trust returns, so does joy. And where joy takes root, the work of your hands becomes more than survival. It becomes a blessing that moves through you without breaking you.